on to the demo. Here we go. So just a couple of quick slides from Autodesk to talk a little bit about what's going on in the product. There are a bunch of enhancements in the 2015 product. Some are subtle, some are a little bit more obvious, and we'll go through most of those. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? You practice. So I've practiced a bunch of this, but there are a couple where I'm actually going to rely on some videos. One is reality capture for you, and the other is going to be on design feed. It just I can't quite talk as fast as the video goes, so I'm going to let you see those. But the rest of it I'm going to try to demonstrate live for you. A lot of the stuff in this particular release has just been kind of fit and finish. This is the last of the 3 releases on the 2013 platform, and so that's where we get to that kind of level of refinement. I'm not sure these are the top 5 reasons I would choose for upgrading, but these are the top 5 that Autodesk thinks are the best for you. So faster interface, new productivity tools, some more access to Autodesk and AutoCAD 360 cloud services. If you're involved in really building anywhere in the world, there's new geolocation features if you want to bring maps in and print those. And again, as we're working on existing buildings, a lot more reality capture is going to be taking place of existing buildings, and we'll take a look at that as well. We're not actually going to cover rendering tools, although those are built into reality capture. And then you have Exchange apps where you can get add-on programs. And there's one other note, and I think, Dave, you might want to just talk about this, right?
Yep. So what this is about is there's a promotion currently that Autodesk is offering to upgrade older licenses of any of their products. Hopefully you've heard by now that effective February 1st of 2015, Autodesk is no longer going to allow upgrades of older licenses that are not on subscription. So any licenses that have fallen off subscription, you have between now and February 1st to get them back onto a contract. And that requires upgrading the license first and then putting it on your subscription contract going forward. And luckily right now there is a promotion giving you a 20% discount to upgrade any licenses, 2014 or prior of any of their any software at all that Autodesk has sold. You can upgrade to the current licenses, and that includes AutoCAD, AutoCAD Architecture, Revit, any of those. So it's an exciting opportunity.
Yep. Don't delay. Call today. We have operators standing by. That's 212-465-8734, right? Okay, so here we go. I love those ads, right, where they do it 3 times. We're going to cover these things in a minute, but I'll give you kind of the big bullet points on these. So Autodesk has changed the color of the interface. I hated it initially, but I hate lots of things initially. So change is something that no one particularly likes. I'm not sure about the eye strain. They're saying that really the darker screen helps reduce eye strain. I've got older eyes than probably most of you, and my eyes aren't strained, and I'm not sure about the lack of contrast. But you know what? I'm going to give it a try because I think you can teach old dogs new tricks. So we'll see what happens there. There's a new tab page or a new page that starts up to get you into your drawings and other things more quickly, so I'll show you that. Some changes to the ribbon and to command preview, which are very nice. The help window has a new feature that works for most things to basically show you where a command is. So in theory, the classic interface is gone. I'm going to show you how to sneak it back in, but if it's gone and you're trying to learn the ribbon after fighting it for so many years, we're going to talk about how the help menu can help with that. I'll show you the new geographic location tool. You have to be logged into 360 to do that, so we'll look at that as well. Some new productivity tools with text, and we have a little video on reality computing. Okay, so this is the new interface, at least the slide. We're going to go live here in a second. But you can see really that they've kind of worked on going for a darker gray background rather than this white background for the palettes and the ribbons and design feed and things of that sort. So we'll see that in a second here. Okay, so the initial items that I'm going to try to cover here have to do with the new tab, the darker theme. I'll show you how you can set it back to lighter. Some of the ribbon improvements, what are called galleries. I'm going to show you the help, some changes to the layout tab at the bottom. Status bar has changed significantly, and I'm going to show you something with layer list. So I may have to flip back and forth to remember all that I'm doing here. So let's go over to AutoCAD. And here is, Dave, they can see this? You can see this okay, Dave? Yeah, okay, good. Yep. So, okay, good. So here's this is the new screen that starts up. You can obviously turn this off if you want, but it might be a good starting point for you. There are a couple of tabs down here at the bottom. You've got the Learn tab and the Create tab, and if you look on the screen, you can see this little button over here that kind of slides things back and forth. Initially here, you've got this, in this portion of it, you can simply click on Start a Drawing, and it'll use the default template file that you have. You also have the ability to use the drop-down arrow and choose any of the templates that you might have available, or to create a new sheet set. You also have options for just opening an existing file, opening a sheet set. There's getting templates online and explore sample drawings. In the center of the screen, you have your recent documents, and you have a bunch of different buttons down here at the bottom to control what those look like. So you can change how they're listed. You can choose this button to list them this way, or this way, right? So really you have that available. And you can use the pins to pin the documents in place if you want. You can connect over here on the right-hand side to Autodesk 360, send feedback to help improve the products, keep it nice and pleasant for doing that. There's also information on Learn. So there are some Get Started videos, there's some new features videos, and then they have information here about security updates to it, so you can click here for patch details. There's some information here on some other resources, so all of that sort of fun stuff. Let me go back over to here and see what I want to do. The dark theme. Okay, so let's swing into a drawing here. So here's the dark theme, right? It's kind of nice and dark, and it's supposed to be really kind of okay on the eyes. And you know what? It's starting to kind of grow on me a little tiny bit. You know, we'll kind of give it a little while here. In the options dialog box on the display tab, you have the ability to go from dark to light, right? So you can kind of do that, and it'll go back to that, right? And so, you know, you have that kind of contrast, and it's pretty easy to kind of choose which one you want. So I'll stay with dark for now, and we'll just see what happens. So that's the theme. There are a couple of variables that you can adjust. There's a color theme variable that you can use to kind of set the color theme for you as well. Ribbon improvements with galleries. So I think I've got a tab here for galleries, not that anything actually changes on the screen. But as you're going to place text or dimensions or blocks or multi-leaders, things of that sort, you used to have a list up here, let's say on the Annotate tab at the top. And the individual items for either adding text or adding a dimension or a leader or a table, or if you were on the block tab or the insert tab for inserting a block, you really didn't get much feedback. And now, if you click on the drop-down, you're going to see, is there anything in here? Let's see what we got. Am I in this? I'm not seeing my galleries. Where are my galleries? There should be, oh, not that one, this one here, sorry. So that's what I said, practice, 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 right? I'm clicking on the wrong button. So with the drop-down for switching your style, you can now have a bigger picture of what that style looks like. So rather than just saying standard or stylus, regular, you're actually starting to see what's going on. Or for your dim styles, right, you can actually start to see what these styles look like. Excuse me for 1 second. You also have the drop down here. Again, you can start to see what these things look like. So it's kind of a nice new feature on the Insert tab for inserting a block. Again, you'll start to see what the blocks look like, right, that you're starting to place. So it's almost like having Design Center right in the ribbon. So it's kind of a nice enhancement. to the software. Okay, let me get back over to here. Ribbon improvement. Oh, improved help. Okay, so let's take a look at help. I'll come over to help. Help. Okay, so let's say you're new and you're trying to do something with Mtext. So I'll come over here and I'll type in let's see if I can type Mtext, right? So in Mtext, you'll get all of the help that you had sort of before, but you now have this little button right here, right? And if you click on this little button, what it's going to do, it's going to find for you up in the ribbon where that tool is. So let's see if this works. And did it do it for me? Of course, let's see if we can get it to do find. Of course, it's not working now because it's a live demo, right? So let's see if we can, let's try something else. Let's try the line. Come in. Multi-line, let's try line. Nothing there for line. Let's click to draw line. Click find. Okay, so it's totally, command is currently hidden behind another palette. Okay. I'm not sure what's going on there. Well, normally, I'll go ahead and show you. It worked perfectly yesterday when I tested it, so I won't beat it to death. But it does actually work when you actually do click on this. I'm not quite sure why it says hidden behind another palette or the help window. Move the window out of the way to see the command button. I am not quite sure what's going on. But it should have a little arrow that shows up at the top. So try this back at your office. It'll work perfectly fine, I guarantee it. It actually will also list where it's located. So I'm not quite sure what is going on there. But there should be a little arrow that shows up. And I guarantee you it works, at least in all of Lynn Allen's presentations that I watched. It worked perfectly fine. Layout changes. The layout changes at the bottom of the screen. The layout tabs that used to be above, they used to take up some additional space down here just above the status bar. They've been moved down into the status bar area. And in fact, you'll notice that the status bar has changed a lot as well. So a lot of your old tools and friends that were over here on the left-hand side have been consolidated over here on the right-hand side. So you now have the layers, the tabs down here. You also have the ability to add new layouts simply by clicking the plus to add additional ones. And you can right-click and delete them as well if you want. So not really that difficult to add or remove them. All of the other features that used to be in there for being able to move them or rename them or relocate them are still down there and available. Let us talk about status bar changes. Okay, so the status bar has changed significantly, and everything is kind of tucked in over here on the right. I learned a new phrase yesterday. You guys may not know it yet, but this little icon, let me see if I can zoom in. Down, I can't do that. Let me see if I can do this and zoom in. No, I don't want to do that. Let's do this. Okay, so let's come back over to here. This new little icon down here, the customization icon, is referred to as a hamburger. So it's a hamburger gizmo. And I never heard that expression before, but it's been around for a long time. A guy at Xerox, I think, invented that or designed that symbol back in the 70s, 60s. Anyway, the three lines, right, the bun and the burger in the middle, that's called a hamburger gizmo. So anyway, when you click on that, you'll see all the different options that are available that you can turn on and off. And so I've made some adjustments to what I like to have available on the status bar. And again, you can adjust that. I've turned off the clean screen, for example, so I don't accidentally click on that. So totally customizable for you. What's next? Status bar changes. Layer lists. So the layer lists, in the past, when you created a list of layers and you had 1 through 20, you would have 1, and then it would go 10, 11, 12, 13, and then it would, get to 19, and then it would go 2, and then it would go 20, 21. And Autodesk has realized that that's really not the way we want things listed. So you'll notice now that in the layer list, here's layers 1 through 9, and then 10 through 20. And so it's actually doing logical sorting now in the layer list. It's not sorting it using ASCII sorting anymore. So that's kind of a nice feature if you've had trouble in the past. You've had to kind of fake in some zeros in order to get things to sort correctly for you. Okay. That exhausts that particular screen. Let's move on to graphics. So line smoothing. Let me open up a different drawing. I want to open up, which one do I want to open up? Line display. Let's open up this drawing. And let me close this guy up here. Okay, so line smoothing may not seem like, you know, a super duper big deal, but there is, you can see this diagonal line here, or there's some diagonal lines there. There's some more diagonal lines there, and you can see that they look really pretty nice at this point. On the bottom, on the status bar, you have the graphics performance. And I have hardware acceleration turned on right now, and one of your options is to smooth the line display. If I turn that off and pick OK, you should start to see the jaggies, right? So you start to see the jaggy edges in lines. And again, not really a super duper big deal, but you can see the kind of stair stepping based on pixels. But when you turn that back on, you will get smoother lines, right? So that's kind of nice. There's no performance hit. I'm not quite sure how they're doing that, but there's no performance hit on that at all in terms of speed of system. You also have complex line types display as you create or edit. So it seems kind of like a logical thing, but here's a complex line, and as you dragged it in the past, you would only see a little dash. You wouldn't actually see the complex line as you were working on it, and now that's been fixed so that you actually do see it the whole time as you're editing it. Improved object selection. So let's see if I can switch over to that particular drawing. So let me switch to that one, and let me go over to the, there we are, selection tab. So when you're in, let me close this drawing so I don't continue to eat up the whole file system. Okay, so when you are in model space or paper space, sometimes you're like, well, you know, you're not quite sure what space you're in, and so as you're putting your cursor over objects, you really weren't sure if you were in model space or in paper space. Now, if you actually go into, see if I can get into model space. Now, if you actually hover over an object, you can start to see that it highlights pretty dramatically. So you'll know instantly whether or not you are in one space or another. So the object selection has improved. And again, that's something you can control inside of the options dialog box, but it makes it a little more obvious when you're, you know, if you're in one space or another. So they've kind of made it a little bit easier for you to figure out where you're located. New lasso option. So some of you may have discovered this by accident like I did, but if you make a click on the screen and then let go, you have your standard window or your standard crossing, whether you go left to right or right to left. Some of us work with other products. So for instance, Revit, when you're going to select objects, you can't pick and let go. You have to pick and hold down your button. So as you move back and forth between products, you'll sometimes in AutoCAD hold down your left button. Well, what happens now in this release, if you hold down your left button as you're starting to pick, is you get the lasso, right? So you can now sort of lasso things on the screen, and depending on whether you go, you start your initial lasso from left to right or right to left. I started from left to right, so I get just the window lasso. But if you start from right to left, you'll get your crossing lasso. And again, that can be controlled in the options dialog box in the selection tab, whether you want that or not. Lasso model space viewport. Okay, so model space viewports. Let's see what we got here. Model space viewports. Let's open that drawing. So a 3D stair. Even if you're not working in 3D, this can be kind of interesting. Being able to adjust your viewports, you'll notice that you have the in-canvas controls up here at the top, and you have the ability to change your view. You can switch to any view angle you want, from parallel to perspective. You can change your display type. You also have this little dash viewport controls, and if you double-click that quickly, what it'll do is it will configure your screen into 4 views, a top view and then some other views. Now, again, we don't all use this very much, but if you use Macs or familiar with that, you'll know that if you have viewports open, you can actually put your cursor in the middle and actually drag this around, and it's sort of like, wow, they've added that to AutoCAD, right? So that's pretty cool. You'll also notice that you've got this dash in the middle that allows you to kind of drag it, and you'll also notice that there's this plus symbol in the upper corner. So if you do that, you can drag over and start to make additional viewports. So if I click on this, I can kind of start to do this, right? You can start to get pretty silly. If you want to reconsolidate, you can simply drag the edges, kiss them back together. There we go. And kiss this one. See if I can kiss this one back over to here, right? And then we could always go back to the one that we want by just double-clicking the plus, and we'll go back to that one viewport. So some kind of fun new features using, where are we? Fun new features using the layout, using tiled layouts. 3D orbit improvements. Just again, if you do 3D, let me just close this guy up and open the drawing that's for 3D orbiting. That is called 3D orbit down here. Okay, so let's go over to the model tab. So with 3D orbiting, if I come over and use the orbit tool, depending on this new variable called enable orbit auto target, then as you pick on the screen, you'll notice that if you hold down your left button, right, what happened? Well, it didn't really do anything, right? So it's still using wherever I pick. See, it's just orbiting automatically. So there's a new variable that's called orbit auto target, right? But that's too difficult to remember. That's in the right-click menu. Just turn off enable auto target, and now when you hold down your left button, that becomes the pivot point, right? So, you know, it's not a big deal, but it makes it a lot easier if you're trying to work in 3D. So again, this is really just to try to help enhance your ability to move around inside of Autodesk. So that's that new feature. Let me see if I can cancel out of that and come back over to here. Okay, so we covered that. Let's go over to command preview. So we've got some new command previews. A few were added in the previous release, but let me show you some of the other ones that are available. So let me close this guy down and say no to that. Let's close this and say no to that. And we'll come over to here, and I should have something called command preview. So let's open this. Okay, so I'm going to come over to the drawing here, and we'll take a look inside of this viewport here. Okay. So with command preview, there have been a whole bunch of additional items added. We have the offset, the fillet, the chamfer, the trim, extend, match property, and break. So I'll just show you a couple of those. Let me show you the extend tool. So with extend, if I pick this edge and then pick this edge, press enter, notice now as I hover, you're seeing this command preview. So you can see immediately what's about to happen and decide whether that's really what you want to do. If I came back and did trim, I'll just pick everything. Now again, you'll notice that that is starting to cut out that edge, right? So you can choose, that's exactly what I want to have happen, right? So you get the command preview for that. So that's kind of a nice new feature. Break is one where sometimes we can't quite tell what's going on. So the break tool, why am I not seeing break? Modify. There we go. So there's my break using 2 points. So again, if I pick, right, it's, you know, before you were kind of like not really sure what was about to happen when you're about to make your second pick. And now you can see immediately what's going to happen when you have picked on the screen. And you say, oh, you know what, that really wasn't what I wanted. I didn't really want to pick the first point. So again, that's kind of a nice new feature. And then match property. Sometimes you're never quite sure what's going to happen using the match property tool. So let me go ahead and pick that, and I'll pick this color here as my source color. Now notice as I hover over other elements in the file, you'll see that again with match property you're seeing the command preview as well. So again, just kind of new fit and finish cursor badges. Okay, so let's zoom out and come back over to here. So cursor badges have been added to the cursor. So again, as you start to make a pick and drag, notice there's a little icon appearing at the corner of my crosshairs. Also notice if I were to pick, let's say, the copy tool, you'll see I now have this little icon that looks like the tool up at the top, looks like the copy tool. If I were to select these, right-click, and say, let's use the move tool, now when I pick, you see you get the move tool icon, or badge, as they call it. So you get these little badges that show up at your crosshairs. And unlike the Treasure of the Sierra Madre, you do need the badges. So you go ahead and use those. So let's go over to cursor bed drafting enhancements. Polylines. Okay, so there have been some additional enhancements to polylines. And is that in my drafting enhancements? Yes, so let me bring that drawing up. This guy takes a second or two. I'm not quite sure what's going on in this guy, but he takes a second. Just so you know, I'm running on a Lenovo laptop, and I've got 32 gigs of RAM, so that is always useful. Anyway, let's come into this viewport. The fillet, right? So we have a new tool for filleting. If we use the fillet tool, if we have arcs in polylines, and I run the fillet tool and I pick this and then pick this, notice, of course, you get the command preview as well, but that's a new feature, being able to fillet polyline arcs. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to stay in this drawing for a second and do the isometric drafting tools, and then we'll come to a different drawing to show you the dim continue variable. So I'm going to switch over into this viewport down here, and the new isometric drawing tools that are available. Down here you have isometric drafting is currently turned off. If I click on that to turn it on, notice that the screen immediately reconfigured itself and that there are some drop downs for being able to switch the plane for drawing on. You can also use the F5 key in that in the viewport, so you can easily switch. So if you started to draw lines, again, you know, I'm not going to spend an enormous amount of time drawing things in the isometric viewport, but you've got the ability to do that. And again, if I were to turn, I should probably turn ortho on in order to draw it the right way, right? But and then, you know, if you hook up with that, you can come up to here, right? And then if you do F5, you can switch to a different direction, right? And then when you're done, if you turn isometric off, if I come into here and turn that off, it goes back to, right, the regular view. So it's pretty easy if you're trying to do 2D isometric drawing to use that new tool. If you don't do any isometric drawing, then again, you can simply come to the little hamburger and say, well, I don't need isometric drawing, and that little icon will be gone from the bottom of the screen. Dimensioning, let me just go over to, actually, let me open up this other drawing here, dimension, continue. Okay, so I'll come over to model. So there is a new variable for dimensioning. It's the dim continue mode, and it is normally set to 1, so you don't have to change that by default, but if you have a dimension like this, if I click on the smart little icon for the grip and say continue the dimension, notice what happens if you don't have that variable turned on, right? It uses whatever the current layer and the current style is, even if it's not the current one. So with this new variable, the dim continue mode, and by the way, as you type in now, the menu has gotten, the pop-up menu or at the command line has gotten much smarter and starts to sort much more accurately for you. So if I set that to 1, pick this, pick on that grip, go over to continue dimension, come up. Now you'll notice that it's using the same style and the same layer and all of that good stuff. So that's dim continue. You also have object snap. So if you're trying to snap to objects, you were finding extension lines by accident, and that might not be something that you want. So in the options dialog box under selection, you now have the ability, is it under selection or is it under drafting? Under drafting. So you have the ability to tell it to ignore dimension line extensions, right? So now you won't be accidentally snapping to dimension lines anymore when you're trying to draw or pick things. So let me close this. Okay, the next new feature, we're on to the next slide, Mtext improvements. Okay, so let's get into that particular drawing. And I'll say no to that, and we'll say close this. And what did I say? Oh, Mtext, okay. Let's keep going here. So let me get over to Mtext. Mtext improvements. There have been improvements to transparency, bullets, smart auto caps, fractions, tooltips, and match property. By the way, you'll see this tooltip. Lynn Allen pointed this out in one of her videos. Autodesk actually mistyped the word reposition, and it's still in the program. So your job is to let Autodesk know of any other misspelled words in the product. Look for those, maybe there are Easter eggs buried in there. But let's take a look at this. One of the things that's kind of interesting, if I double click this, notice the text is transparent, so you can kind of see through to other objects. It also tries to adjust the size so you can kind of see things clearly. If I zoom in a bit, double click, it doesn't do that. But there's some new features here which are kind of super cool, makes it a lot easier to adjust columns and things of that sort. See if I can show you some of the other new features in here. If you press enter at this point, let me kind of back up over this, and let's say I do 1 and start to type some stuff, right? And I do this and start to type some stuff. If I come down here and then do 5, actually, and then press the space bar, you'll notice I get this little glyph, the lightning bolt glyph. And if I pick that, it says, well, you know, you got 1 and 2 there. Do you want to keep going? Oh, yeah, I don't know why I decided to do 5. So you've got that sort of thing that's available. You also have the ability, if you turn your caps lock on, I'm going to turn my caps lock on, and if you're not paying attention and you start typing in, and I start typing in, you know, say today, as soon as I press the space bar, the software now recognizes the fact that I had the caps lock on. It immediately turns the caps lock off and fixes the word for you. So that's super cool. If you come down and start typing fractions, like 1/4, and press the space bar, then you'll notice that it immediately makes it a fraction, and you get the glyph, and you can choose diagonal, or you can choose to look at stack properties, all kinds of stuff like that. You'll also notice that they've added the match property tool so that you have the ability to very quickly match properties internal to the text editor. Anything else in the text editor? No, I think that's pretty good. The only other thing has to do with tooltips. So if you're in here and you're kind of wondering what this thing does over here, you get your little tooltip that's available. So I'm really not quite sure what that little icon does, and that one's not really doing anything for me. So again, all kinds of improvements in Mtext. Oh, text align. Let me see if I can demonstrate that over here. So we've got these 3 pieces of text that are not aligned with each other. So the text align command, I just start the word text. I can pick the 3 words, right click, and then you can choose let's say I choose bedroom. So now you have the ability, there's a drop-down list to do it horizontally or vertically. Right now the default is vertically, and then you just pick a spot and they align vertically. And there's a whole bunch of other options with that. Let me keep moving here. Geographic location, wow, we've got just so much stuff and not too much time left. So I should show you some of the features for geographic location. Let me bring up this file here. So you don't really have to start with a blank file, but geographic location on the geolocation is on the insert tab, I believe, and you have set location, and I could say from map. You have to be logged in to do that, so let me very quickly log into, or at least try to log in quickly to Autodesk 360. And I'll just show you, I'm not going to have enough time to do the whole demo for you, but I'll just show you a little bit about how it works. Okay, so you get signed in, and you can now begin to use the set location tool. So I'm signed in, and I'll go ahead and say OK to that. Switched me, of course, to different programs, so I switch back over to here. I'll go ahead and click the set location from map and use maps. So I can, yes, use maps now that I'm logged in. You can enter an address, 111 McGinnis, I think it's McGinnis Boulevard, San Rafael, California. Let's see what that does. Okay, so that's Autodesk headquarters. And so if you're kind of wondering what Autodesk headquarters is, that's what that is. We can say, let's drop the marker in, and you can kind of zoom in and say you've got your marker. So let me see where my marker ended up. It ended up over there. I can drag the marker to a new location and then say next. You then get improvements. Yes, next. You can then get these specific coordinate systems. They've sorted these a lot more efficiently. I'll go ahead and choose that, say next, and I'll pick an insertion point 0, 0, 0, and I'll say 90 degrees, and it'll put the map on, and there's the map, and there's your site. You can start to zoom in, and you'll notice as you zoom in, the pixelation gets better and better and better, so it'll kind of continue to refine things. There are a whole bunch of different options on here for capturing the area. So you can do clipping. You can change your aerial to road, to hybrid, to map off. Just a whole bunch of new features with the geolocation marker. Again, I'm sort of running out of time, so I'm going to kind of blow through those particular features. But there are some really, really cool ones for being able to use geographic location. Reality capture, again, I'm not going to have enough time to show all of that. I'm going to kind of sneak you into a little bit of information about that. I'll start a video up, and then we'll be able to make that available for you later on. But reality capture, they've improved the ability to display. So starting in 2013, you only had 2 billion points. Now you're up to 20 billion points. So if you look on the left, that's what 2 billion points looks like, and if you look on the right, that's what 20 billion points looks like. The reality capture allows you to come in and take a look around at your building. I'm going to just start a video up here quickly and see if I can, I'm going to turn the sound off and just kind of take you through, see if I can just bring you through a couple of things fairly quickly. Actually, that was, so let me bring in the point cloud. So once you've brought in a point cloud, you can control the display of colors in there. This is bringing in a building, and you have this new point cloud manager over on the left-hand side. You can turn on and off point clouds, or you can zoom in on specific point clouds. You have the ability to clip these point clouds, so you can create these boundaries and clip them, and you can choose inside and outside. You can switch direction to vertical elevation, and you can continue to clip these so you can get it down to where you end up with a fairly specific excuse me, looking view. You have options for being able to snap to 3D surfaces, to set your tessellation amount, all kinds of stuff like that. So let me cancel this guy. I'm going to cancel the video if I can. Press escape. I can't do that. See if I can do, let's see if I can cancel this. I can't do that. Let me get back over to AutoCAD. Let me get back to my presentation. Over to, you can get back to here. Okay, so there's also something for collaborating inside the drawing. There's been some improvements to design feed. Design feed was introduced in the previous release, so there's a demo available on that as well. Now let's switch over to, so I'm going to hop out of that. So let me go on to the next thing. A couple of other quick things. Classic interface is gone in the software. Let me close this file. So no more classic interface when you start up. And yet, if I go to my drop-down menu, you'll notice I have something that says AutoCAD Classic. So when you first start up the software, you'll see that you have this migration box, right? So it says, do you want to migrate? Oops. Let me see if I can get back to this. It says, do you want to migrate? Your settings? And you can migrate your CUI files, and that'll give you the classic interface back. So you can get that back, even though you're really not supposed to have that. The education plot stamp. Was kind of nasty, and actually got even nastier in 2014 because they kind of turned off the notice in one of the update products. Well, in 2015, it's gone. So all you have to do is come into your drawing and just save it. Just save it in 2015, and the education plot stamp is gone. Oh no, DGN line styles. Autodesk somehow managed a problem with DGN line styles. Steve, there was a note from Steve. I missed seeing that. Sorry. The DGN line styles, there was a problem with those, and there's now been an improvement. So if you go into the Purge dialog box, you can see that there's an option now at the bottom here to purge orphaned data. So you don't have to load any additional software and do net load and all of that stuff. And you can shrink your file sizes down if they started to grow and you're having trouble with copy paste and things of that sort. Let me close that. And I think that takes care of AutoCAD. We have a PDF file that we're going to post for you that has all the new features. The application manager installs. It's really kind of nice to have that available. That's down in your tray. Okay, so let me switch into AutoCAD Architecture just briefly to show you a couple of new features in there. If you're using Project Navigator, you have the ability now, rather than to open a drawing, rather than opening this particular drawing, I have the ability instead to check it out. So I can right-click and choose the check in, check out feature. So you have, it's kind of vault-like. And when you check in or check out a drawing, what happens is you can save revisions to it, and so you can see these different revisions. And so I can go back to any one of these particular revisions and right-click and say to open it read-only, so I can take a look at it and see what was going on there. I can see that there were some walls missing in there. If I make some changes, you can open up a couple of them by simply picking two of the files, right-click, and you can choose to visual compare, and it'll open the two files, and it'll show you the overlap of where those changes occurred. So you can begin to see what you've changed from one file to another. So kind of nice new vault features in there. The last two things to show you, let me just close this just quickly here because we're kind of at the 10-minute mark and we want to have time for questions. There have been some visual, some of the things that have been improved is there's a new live update visually, and I just want to show you the new styles preview. So in previous releases, you could move things around, but you weren't actually seeing everything that was happening. Now you'll notice that as you drag on the wall, you'll see visually that it's sliding along. Another thing that if you start, let's say, a wall tool, and you're not quite sure what you have in the file, in the Properties palette, you used to have this drop-down list for what styles were available, right? So I've got the standard style, and I've got a few others in here, but you really didn't have the ability to load other styles. So I can click on this little icon in the Properties palette, and depending on my settings, I now have the ability to go through and find all these different styles. And you also have a search method as well, and that's controlled, the location of this in the options dialog box. Okay, so that I kind of blew through. Microsol Resources, that's kind of the live demo at this point. So we have AIA credits or PDH credits, check in at marketing@microsolresources.com. I think we're offering one for today. You can visit our website for other information. So we have all kinds of lovely things on our website for you to look at, and we have some additional events going on. Oh, you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter, although I have no idea what I'm doing on Twitter, so just kind of just look for funny comments like Reid has no idea what to do on Twitter. We can like us on Facebook, and some of our upcoming webinars. So we have a webinar coming up on the 10th, what's new in the MEP world, both Revit and AutoCAD. We have some Navisworks stuff on the 17th of June, on the 24th, Revit Architecture, Civil 3D in July, Energy Analysis in July, BIM Workflows, Reality Capture, lots and lots of stuff going on. That's it. I'm sort of done. So,
hey, Reid, this is
hey,
Stephen.
Steve.
How are you?
Okay, good. I'm good.
Just a couple of quick things.
Sure.
I think I've answered most of the questions. Of course, if anybody else has additional questions, there was one I sent out to the entire group regarding the Mtext and the all caps and the autocorrect for caps lock. There were a lot of inquiries about what if you did want to type in all caps, and what I pointed out is that for any of these Mtext elements, you can right-click in the editor while you're editing and choose to toggle on and off. So you might want to
you've got the all caps option. I don't know, can you see that or not?
Yep, we can see that.
So there's the all caps option, and then if you don't like the bulleting issue, if you don't like that automatic bulleting, I think under the bullet drop down there's some options here that say to allow bulleting and number, and so you have the ability to kind of control that as well. So
perfect. If you actually just right click on that Mtext, the one that's being edited right now, this is what I also pointed out is that you have the two toggles there about halfway down.
There's all caps
and
all
autocorrect.
caps. Yep, and you have change case there as well. So there's if you can't find it on the ribbon, right click.
That's what I always recommend. And then there was one other question regarding. Let me see if I can track it down here because it was coming in through chat and questions. It was regarding the scale of the aerial maps that you can now put in. And I love answering these questions because I'm a civil engineer. So what I will point out is that for any of the aerial maps that you bring in, you can pick a scale and you can pick a coordinate system. So they've integrated that nicely into vanilla AutoCAD. So it's been a feature that's been around for a while in Civil 3D, but you'll see as you step through the process of inserting an aerial map, after you've dropped in a marker in at your location, you'll be given the ability to select your units and your coordinate system. So for instance, those of you who are at all working with what are known as state plane coordinate systems, you'd see, for instance, if you dropped in Manhattan, you'd be able to choose the New York 1983 North American datum and then choose the Long Island zone as the appropriate zone. So this is true for, I imagine, certainly all throughout the states. It might even be the case for many of the international locations as well.
Cool.
All right, and I think that's everybody else's questions I think were answered. So a few more are coming in now.
Okay, well, we got about 5 minutes left.
Yep. So a couple of questions regarding the images being right protected and are we allowed to use them? That I don't know.
Which
for
images?
commercial use, I'm not sure what the legal
images
repercussions are. Well, if you're using the aerial maps, but what I will point out, what I will point out is that when you do drop it in, it does what's the legal term for it? It does provide a not a footnote. What's the word, Reid? It does indicate that, for instance, that the image is courtesy of, in the case of a map that I brought in, the USGS Earth Star Geographics, and it has copyright Microsoft Corporation because it is coming from Bing Maps. Now, whether or not you can use it on a commercial project, I don't see any legal indications that you wouldn't be able to. But again, we might need to explore the end user license agreement and find out a little bit more about.
Check with your lawyer.
Check with, yes. No legal advice here. Just
no legal advice. We offer absolutely no legal advice other than if you're using more licenses than you purchase, then we can offer
exactly.
You, then we can offer you legal advice or a striped suit, either one.
One question that just came in. Once you select with a lasso, how do you unselect it? Can you use the control key?
Yes.
I would imagine that the answer is yes to that.
Yeah, pretty much. I guess so. If you, if you do something like this, well, I'm going the wrong way. Let's see if I can go right to left. There we go. So again, if you get stuff like that, right, you can hold down the control key or the shift key to add or remove things. So again, just the same way, right? So the lasso really is just a flexible way to select the objects versus a crossing or a window. One of the big requested items back in the old days was the WC or the CP. I think it was was it WC or C? It was crossing polygon, CP, or window polygon. WP or CP.
Yeah,
WC is where we go for the bathroom. So, but that was big, like, right? So if you were trying to do like move and you would select objects, everyone had like WP for window polygon, and then the window polygon was a really big feature. The problem with the window polygon is if you kind of cross over yourself, it doesn't like that, right? But no one remembers that this was one of those big features. So now, if you just hold down your left button, you kind of get that, except it's a lasso, and it kind of figures out. It's kind of just fun. You can just kind of create abstract art and then do a screen capture, right? But yeah, it's just kind of built. It's just kind of built in there. Yeah, I'm sure you can.
One other quick question that just arrived as well. This is regarding the demo earlier. When you created the viewport for isometrics, is that a regular viewport, or the viewport is created as an isometrics viewport?
Are you talking about double-clicking on this? Like
no. When it's the isometric lock. I think is what they were referring to.
Yes.
In Paperspace.
It's just an ordinary, right? It's just an ordinary viewport. So, or it's just ordinary in the view. So, if I'm in this view and let me turn the isometric tool back on. So, if you wanted to just start drawing, let's say in here, and I click on the isometric tool, basically it just immediately changes your object snap to isometric and changes your cursor. So you don't have to go into OSnap and you don't have to go into Snap and change it to isometric and all of that sort of stuff. This just kind of automatically toggles that on and off for you.
Great.
So it's not a special. You just click on that and you basically just start. You just go to town. You just start drawing, right? It's just you're in there.
Well, one other question that came in, and I'll answer this one, about whether or not AutoCAD 2015 is compatible with earlier versions, and the answer to that is yes. 2015 utilizes the same DWG file format as 2014 and 2013. Anything earlier than 2013, you would just need to choose the appropriate toggle from the drop-down in your options, so that when you're saving down to that DWG file format, you're using the lowest common denominator for the file type that you may be working with other consultants, other contractors, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think two of the most compelling features of upgrading are the ability to get rid of any additional lines, the DGN lines. So if you've been struggling with that, it's pretty easy to purge those out. And the ability to get rid of the, if you're ever having any issues with the plot stamp, the education plot stamp 2015 gets rid of that. So command preview, just being able to see things that you're doing, as you're doing them. I think there's a lot of really compelling small features in the product that add up to something really big. And if you're using geolocation or reality capture, there's some huge improvements in this.
Definitely. There's another question that just came in as well. I think the answer is no, but I haven't really explored it thoroughly. Is there anything new in SheetSet Manager? My guess is no. I haven't seen anything.
No, there's no. They haven't added any of the vault features yet, the vault-like features to that. That may be coming because they put it into Project Navigator, and Project Navigator is sort of an extension of SheetSet Manager. So. Not yet. So Vault is one of those products that Autodesk, just it keeps appearing and reappearing, and it's good for this and good for that, and keep your eyes open. We may see more integration of that in the line in the future, but again, I don't know. That's just speculation on my part. So.
Yep. No, it's a good guess. Vault and Civil 3D SheetSet Manager have been sort of working hand in hand for years. So I eventually see it probably working its way into the vanilla AutoCAD market as well.
Okay. Well, I think we've exhausted our hour. I don't know if Annalisa
our questions.
or any marketing people are there to take over for me or sign off or what. I hope it's just you and me, Steve, at this point.
Maybe. No, I think we're good. Unless anybody else has anything to add, we'll continue to monitor the questions for the next few minutes. If not, you can always email us at support@microsolresources.com with any additional questions you have.